Hey, what's up, YouTube? So I wanted to talk today about an issue that I am seeing in the place that I'm currently working at that I think is pretty common, that I've seen in quite a few places that I've worked at previously, as well as quite a few places that I'm sure most of you have worked at as well. So I'm working in an organization that's in human services. I'm in the department that has group homes for people with mental illnesses, substance abuse issues, people who aren't safe to be on their own, so they're going to live in a group home instead of jail or the hospital. And human services has a really terrible turnaround or turnover rate, where it's something like within the first 3 months, like 50% of people are gone. Like by the 1 year mark, like we've lost like 150% of employees. There's very, very fast turnaround because it is a difficult position. It's a difficult population to work with, and the pay is pretty terrible. So, all those issues being in place, our current organization's having an issue where we can't keep direct care staff. So these are staff who are working in the houses with the residents one-on-one or in groups, helping them work on developing skills, getting out in the public, taking care of themselves, making meals, working on calming activities, things like that nature. But right now, the organization that I'm with is having what they're calling a staffing crisis because they have 20 some open positions and they can't find people to fill them. And they're very much banking, oh, well, when we find all the people that we need to fill these positions, then all of our problems are going to go away. And they're not actually taking into consideration the fact that if you're not going to address the issue that caused the original, however many people to leave, then these people that you're bringing in are just going to leave 3 months down the road and you'll be back in the exact same boat. So you really need to identify what the core issues are that are driving people away. And they recognize this and they addressed it a couple times with multiple people in groups, and they're like, hey, we want to make improvements, we want to better ourselves, we want to make this a place where people are happy to work. Tell us what's going on, tell us what you're hearing, tell us what we need to do to make this place better. And our HR people said this. There's one day where our HR person was like, oh yeah, like we're sending out surveys via email, and we're just kind of spamming people with it. And if they're not telling us what's wrong, then, there's nothing we can do. And then in that, exact same group, when after she said that, I addressed it with her and I said, there have been studies all over the world that show that nobody responds to surveys, and if they do respond, they're just going to click the easiest answer. So you're not actually getting valuable data. You're just getting people going through the motions and pushing submit. And she just got super defensive and cut me off and changed the subject to something else. And I was like, okay, if you don't want to hear it, that's fine. Then the next week, our other HR person came in, said the exact same spiel, we want to hear what's wrong. So after she left, I left right after her and I grabbed her and I was like, hey, let me steal you for a few minutes and I want to tell you about some things that I've been seeing and what other people have been saying to me as to the reasons as to why they want to leave or why other people have left. So we sit down in a conference room and I'm ready and I have a list ready. So I just start going down the list where I'm yep, this right here that you're doing, it's an issue because of reasons A, B, and C. This is how it's perceived. This is what the consequence of that, decision that you're making is. This right here is an issue because it affects people in A, B, and C reasons, and this is why they're leaving. And I just started going through a list of, they're big, important issues that would definitely affect retention if they were addressed, but they theoretically should be very easy to address. It's just a matter of, are you willing to actually do it? And after literally maybe 4 things that I talked about, our HR person started cutting me off when she started hearing things that she didn't like. I would say something like, oh yeah, I came all the way to the office from my house, which is about a 45-minute drive from the house that I work at, to the main office, and the person who I was supposed to meet with, not only are they an hour late for our meeting, but apparently they're just not coming into work today, and they didn't communicate that to me whatsoever. So now I have basically, a wasted day, as well as, I've been driving for a mile or for an hour here, now an hour back. That is something that I personally wasn't really bothered by, because I just was answering emails at their desk the entire time, so I got a little bit of a head start on my email, so I was fine with it. But I phrased it in the way of, if I was new to administrative work, if I was new to your company, and if I were to experience this, I could definitely take it the wrong way, and I could go back to my house and I could start shit talking, and then that rumor will start spreading, and that's how people are going to get a negative perception of this person or the administrative side, because you didn't even show up to a meeting that you set up. And I got maybe 10 seconds into it, and she cut me off, and she's like, no, that can't be the case. Oh, that was just a one-time incident. No, you wouldn't have talked about that. And that's kind of how the rest of the conversation went. I would start to talk about something, and she would cut me off, and she would tell me why I'm wrong, and why I'm perceiving things the wrong way, and how that doesn't actually affect our staff. Even though the staff who I supervise directly would tell me, yes, this affects us in this way, she would say, no, I don't believe it, I'm not buying it, and I don't, essentially, she didn't say the words, but she basically was saying, I don't believe it, I don't care. Which is really, really unfortunate to hear. However, I think that's something that is very, very common when it comes to people or organizations who are trying to better develop themselves and make themselves better for their sake as well as the sake of their employees or clients, is at some point during your development, you're going to talk to your team, you're going to talk to your clients, you're going to talk to the people that you work with, and you're going to ask them, what can I do to be a better teammate, to be a better service provider, to be a better supervisor, what can I do to better, perform? It's going to be, for the sake of your team, for the sake of your clients, for the sake of yourself, just self-development. You're going to ask someone else's opinion of what can I do to better myself? And they're going to give you feedback. The feedback that they're going to give you is going to be stuff that you're currently not doing, or stuff that you're doing and you're just doing it wrong. It's going to be stuff that you're not going to want to hear, probably. It's going to be stuff that makes you cringe and you're like, oh no. It's stuff that's going to make you feel defensive, because someone's going to be saying, hey, you suck at this, or you're not doing this, or you're doing way too much of this and you need to stop. Whatever they say is going to be pinpointing certain areas in your performance, and they're going to say that you're sucking here. Your brain is going to automatically start up, and you're going to want to get defensive. You're going to want to cut them off and tell them why they're wrong. You're going to want to tell them why it's a benefit that you're doing A, B, and C instead of D, E, and F. You're going to want to cut them off and say, well, you actually don't know what's happening. Let me tell you why I'm right and why you should be so lucky as to, me keep doing this. If that's what you're going to do as a response to people giving you feedback, they're going to stop. They're going to say, okay, Josh either doesn't care or he is just not able to, process what I'm saying and actually make improvements. And that's something that I think really, really bogs people down when it gets to, making improvements on themselves, is that they just don't want to hear that harsh feedback that they're doing something wrong. Again, it's perceived as failure, and people don't have a positive response when it comes to failure. They think, oh man, I suck. Oh man, these people hate me. Oh man, I'm probably gonna get fired. So in their brains, the way that they can counteract that perception of I'm failing is that they can correct the person who's correcting them. They can say, no, you're wrong. I'm not failing because of A, B, and C. That's not productive. That's not helpful for you. It's not helpful for the person who is giving you the criticism. It's a waste of your time and theirs. If you don't want the feedback, don't ask for it. But just know that you're not going to be able to make improvement until you can receive that feedback and actually think on it and say, oh, am I actually doing this thing wrong? Am I actually not hitting the deadlines that I need to be hitting? Am I actually, really cold and not warm, so it's tough for people to develop a relationship with me? Do I joke around and give people too much shit to the point of coming off, offensive? Is there truth in the feedback that they are giving me? If you're actually going to think about it, that's going to take a little time. You shouldn't immediately deny it and say, no, that's not true. And you shouldn't immediately agree to it and say, oh, yeah, no, I totally get that. You actually have to take time to think and process what they are saying, reflect on your past behaviors and see if there's any truth to that, and then tell them, thank you for the feedback. I see where you're coming from. This is what I'm going to do differently moving forward. That tells them that, A, I appreciate your advice, so thank you for taking the time. B, I respect your advice. I'm actually going to make modifications based on the feedback that you gave me. C, it's kind of provides you an extra level of accountability because there's someone who you're telling, hey, these are the changes I'm going to make. And then if you don't make them, they can hold you accountable and say, oh, hey, I thought you weren't going to do this anymore. Or, hey, I thought you were going to get better at this. So really the takeaway point that I'm trying to talk about is that if you want to get better, you need to get comfortable with criticism. If you agree with it or disagree with it, it doesn't matter. You need to be able to hear it and actually think on it. Is there any truth to what is being said when I look at my past performance or my past behaviors? That is how progress happens within your team, within yourself, within your organization. Look at the feedback that people are giving you and actually address it. I cannot state that enough because I know it's super, super difficult to hear, especially if you think that, hey, I'm fantastic, I've been performing in my A game for so long now, oh, everyone's so lucky to have me, and then someone tells you, oh, hey, you've been, sucking shit in areas A, B, and C. That's really difficult to hear, but if you can let go of your ego, let go of your pride, and actually accept the feedback, which is help that your team is providing you, you make so much fantastic progress. It's really amazing. But before you can do anything, you need to get comfortable hearing that criticism. Me personally, I have a background in working in research labs for about 4 or 5 years. And part of working in those research labs was writing up studies that we wanted to get published in journals. So when you want to have a study published, you have to write it up in a specific format. Then you have to submit it to a journal. That journal will take that submission that you sent them, and they'll send it out to 2 or 3 experts in the field. And each of those experts will critique every single line of what you write. So if I submit, a study that's 30 pages long, when it gets published, it won't be 30 pages long, but I'll submit something, my rough draft, 30 pages long, 100 or 200, 100 sentences on each page. The people who are critiquing it will literally go through every single sentence and just highlight every single thing that you did wrong, or something that they think is wrong, or something they disagree with. It comes back to you, and the entire thing is basically red because they have edits all over. They have criticism with every single thing that you wrote and every single thing that you did, every single theory that you had, whatever. The first time you get that, it just destroys your confidence. You're like, oh my god, I am in the wrong field. I clearly shouldn't be doing what I'm doing because look at this. I didn't get a single sentence right. They hated all of it. I should just throw this away, switch, become, an engineer or a teacher or something else because I clearly can't do this. And I remember seeing that for the first time and I was like, holy shit. But I am so thankful for it because as far as I'm concerned, that is the most efficient way to break down someone's confidence in something is just to highlight every single thing that could possibly be wrong and tell them that it's wrong. I felt like my confidence was destroyed, but when it built back up a shit ton stronger. So the next time I got one, I'm like, okay, well now I'm not crippled by this, so I can just, look at sentence by sentence and say, oh yeah, you made a good point. I will make that better. Oh yeah, that is a good idea. I will make that improvement. Oh, well, I see where you're coming from, but I don't actually agree with this because of reasons A, B, and C, so I'm going to keep it like this, but thank you for your input. I'm now to the point where people can give me constructive criticism to the point of just saying, hey Josh, you suck. And I won't get offended, I won't get defensive. I'll be like, oh, why do you think that? What am I doing that's supposedly sucking? Because that's really an opportunity for me to understand what I'm doing that makes this person think that I suck, And if it's valid, I can change my behavior and develop a better working relationship between the two of us. If it's not valid, I can say, you know what, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm not going to change. Or, you know, that's what's going to happen if you're going to work with me. That doesn't come up too often, but sometimes it will. I'm not going to change myself professionally to make everyone happy. I'm going to do what I think needs to be done to meet the standard of performance that I want to meet. But I'm still open to hearing the constructive feedback. Even if it's not meant as constructive feedback, any feedback can be constructive if you can have the perception to view it that way. So yeah, that's basically what the video is about. You're going to get feedback at some point. You should be asking for it when you want to improve yourself in terms of, you know, your team dynamics or serving your clients or whatever it might be. When you get that feedback, know, just like with me and the stuff that we try to get published, those experts who were saying I was doing everything wrong, they didn't know me. Like, there was no personal vendetta against me or my, you know, research lab mates. There was no, you know, them being like, oh, hey, that guy Josh sucks, let me ruin his life with, you know, my red marker. That was constructive feedback. They were trying to give me information about every single sentence so I could have it as, you know, best written as possible. They weren't doing that, you know, to say, hey, you suck, you should quit. They were doing that to say, hey, here's 1,000,002 reasons, or here's 1,000,002 ways that you can make improvements. You should look at it and see if you want to make those improvements. Because when you look at it that way and you make those improvements, your publication, you know, becomes fantastic. Whereas if you decide to look at it as, you know, oh, they hate me, you're going to shut down, you're not going to write very well, everything's going to go to shit. So perspective is really important when it comes to getting that feedback, but you need to be open to the feedback. You need to have the emotional control to sit there and let someone say what they have to say, and then the humility to actually sit and think, is there any truth to what's being said when I look back and reflect on my past behavior or my past performances? So yeah, if there is, you know, a big gap between what they think and what you think, you can have that conversation with them. You can say, oh, well, I think I am, you know, meeting the standards because I'm doing A, B, and C. Tell me a little bit more about why you think I'm not. Or it might be a misunderstanding. You know, if someone says, hey, Josh, you know, you need to start getting to work on time because our meetings start at 8 o'clock and you're never here, you know, before 8:15 or 8:20. I can look at them and say, you know, whatever the reason might be, I have to drop off my kids, so I can't be there at this time. I can be there at 8:20, but I can't be there at 8 because, you know, their daycare doesn't open until 8. Or it might be, you know, I live an hour and a half away, so I have to leave at 6:30 a.m. to get there at 8. So sometimes I might be running late, but I'll take responsibility for that. I'll either take responsibility for being late, or I'll take responsibility and I will leave earlier. That way I can be there on time. Even some communication like that can clear up where that gap is that you're seeing between what you think and what the other person thinks. But again, you're not going to get to that understanding if you're not willing to accept that criticism and have that open dialogue and perspective about it. So, criticism is good. If criticism is not good, that's because your perspective is not good. So make sure that your perspective is right. Make sure that you're actually receiving the criticism, you're thinking about it, and you're appreciating the people who are giving it to you, because odds are, even if they're not, odds are they're going to be giving it to you to help you. Even if they're not giving it to you to help you, you can still use it in that format if you have the right perspective and the right spin on it. So, yeah. Listen to people when they tell you that you suck at stuff, and then get better or explain to them why you're not going to make any changes. Either way, be open to hearing it. Bye.